Lynette Theriault and Andre Cronier, two expert facilitators and two people who are very knowledgeable in pathways as well. Together, we've put together this webinar for you this evening and providing training to the district. I want to be clear that tonight is a demo of Pathways. We are what I call the third phase of Pathways. The first phase was promotion about this exciting new program coming. The second phase, we had our Pathways ambassadors talking a little bit more about the benefits of the Pathways program. And now we are in the third phase, which is getting our hands on Pathways, getting into the program, using it, and understanding it on a day-to-day basis. As we go through, if you have questions, please type them into the chat box at any point. Lynette will be monitoring that, and I will be stopping periodically to check if there are any questions to be answered. We will also save some time at the end for question and answer, in case you have any questions that come up then. I'm excited to let you know also that tonight is largely about the member and the user for Pathways. We also have, Andre, our colleague, has set up a Basecamp Manager training program. There'll be more information coming up about that soon. With that, I will ask Christina if you would go ahead and mute everyone, and you may begin the recording.
We are recording.
Fantastic. Pathways, being the new Toastmasters program, has a lot of phenomenal resources. And to understand it better, we have this demonstration for you tonight. This demonstration, we will go into Basecamp. The Basecamp is the program for our course, if you will. And Basecamp is the system we use to access that information. Something that's very important to understand, I think helps a lot of Toastmasters members, especially those transitioning from the legacy program to Pathways, is to understand what Basecamp is. Basecamp and Pathways are not a Toastmasters produced software webinar program. It's actually a product that was purchased and then the information was put into it from Pathways. So it's not something that was built by scratch. In fact, the platform is an online education platform used at universities and high schools. That is the style of the platform. That's why, as we'll see tonight, there are many different approval processes, approval steps in how we progress through the Pathway system. First, I will start, and I'm going to assume that everyone knows how to log in to the Toastmasters website. You can see I'm logged in here. It's got my name there. There are a few different ways to show you how to get to Pathways, but I'm going to show you one so that you can learn it consistently and easily as you go through. Over here, you can see to the right of the Toastmasters logo is Pathways, front and center. As we open that, the best place to go is to the Start page. When we go to the Start page, it's going to bring up the introductory site, the Pathways Learning Experience site. You will see 3 boxes. What I like to tell people, when you come into Pathways and you see these 3 boxes, you want to go right to the navigator, left, choose your path, and center. That is Basecamp. I say that for a reason. Remember, right, left, middle. That's what you want to do. Right is the navigator. This is essentially a tool for all of us in Toastmasters to help orientate our new members. It talks a bit about Pathways, but it also talks about the benefits of Toastmasters, what to expect at a meeting, how to prepare for speeches and different speech resources. This is a great resource for us, and I encourage everybody, if you have not done the navigator, to go ahead and walk through that and encourage that to be part of orienting your new members to the club. It will save you some time and give them a lot of information about Toastmasters. We're not going into it today, but I wanted to mention, so after we've gone right, Which way do we go next? That's right, we go left, and that is choose your path. The path selection, and someone can just choose their path selection, will ask 20 or so questions. And really, it's an assessment to help you guide you towards the path you might want to choose. In the end, it will make a recommendation, and it will show you 2 or 3 paths and recommend that these might fit what you're looking for based on how you responded to the questions. Perhaps you don't like any of those paths, and that is all right. There is, below the recommendations, there will be a link that says, I want to choose my own path, thank you. You click on that and you can choose any of the 11 paths that are available. So in our experience, we've gone right first to understand more about Toastmasters and Pathways. We've gone left to choose our path. And now we're going to go middle. And every time we log in, we're going middle, middle, middle. That gets us to base camp. For those who are part of more than one club, you can see here, you can choose which club you are logging in under. The Regulators is my typical home club, and then I'm also part of MVP Advanced. And I'm also an executive member. I'm the president of my current club currently, and that shows me this button, which is log in as Basecamp Manager. We have some time or questions. We'll look at that later. Most of you will only see Go to Basecamp. That will take you into your program. That is where we're going to go now. Lynette, just checking in. How are we for questions? Any questions to this point?
None yet, Your Majesty.
Thank you, my dear. This is Basecamp. It's got a lot of, lovely pictures, some great giant blue boxes, but when you come into Basecamp, where I really want you to go is I want you to scroll down to the bottom to look at this box, My Education Transcript. This is where your program lies. This is where you find it. I am a persuasive influence. I was just talking to Marta, who's in persuasive influence as well. You can see here it's going to say Open Curriculum, and that will take me into my program. That is my pathway. For those who are not as familiar, this is what it looks like. It will have all of the projects listed here. And it will usually say activate first, where this button says launch, it'll say activate. And then after you activate it, from then on, it will say launch. I'm going to go ahead and launch that, and we will walk through that program. When we click launch, it will open a new window in your browser. This brings up the on-demand module or course for you to take for your program. Just take a moment to come up. I'm going to go through the level 1 icebreaker, as that is where everyone starts with Pathways. Make sure that we understand the navigation and how to move through it. You can take a moment to load. That's happened anytime. Let me just go back here for a moment. You can see that in level 1, and some of you are probably in level 1, some of you are beyond level 1, which is excellent. After you do the webinar, it will notify you that you are done, that you've achieved that project. What is great about this is you can always come back and relaunch this module to gather some of the resources from it, to redo the module if you'd like, to show someone who's new to Pathways. It's great to demonstrate to them. Let's see if this is open for us. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the beginning. In Pathways, when we open this module, just some navigation tips. The first page tells you this. It's a useful reminder. this gray caret or chevron or arrow on the right. So I
Randy,
click that. Here we
Randy, we
go.
seem to be having some trouble with your audio. It's like, it's almost like it's buffering.
All right, seems to have paused on me. Hmm. Okay. I'm not sure about that. I'll just double check. Okay. There we go. Are you able to hear me now, Lynette?
It seems to be okay, unless you're trying to
Are you hearing me
load
okay
something
right
up.
now?
It's almost like, yeah, right now, it's almost like when you are accessing your internet, the speed is really slow. And so you, as Brenda says, you sound like a robot, which is kind of cool, but we're missing part of what you're saying. Just so you know.
Okay, well, I'll move through as best we can, and it'll have an introduction. So we are in the web module right now, introduction. As we move forward, it will explain a little bit about what this module is all about and what you might learn. I enjoy this page, or I like this page, because it gives an overview of what is required, the purpose, and the overview of what we're delivering in terms of this project. One of the other great resources is that we have a project checklist here. There are a number of resources available in a module, and you can click and open them at any time. I will save opening this till the end, as Lynette has hinted that maybe when I'm opening things, it's disrupting the connection. But this project checklist is very similar, and we will have this at the beginning of the module and the end, which is very handy. You will start the module by assessing your skills. This is an important part. It's an educational methodology. We want to do a pre-assessment and find out how you're feeling about your skills in this area. And then at the end, you will do a post-assessment with all the same questions. It's about 6 questions. So if we look here, I'm confident, calm. I understand the structure. This rating scale of 1 to 5 is strictly based on your own rating of that. Whatever value you assign to the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 is what you assign. I'm aware of my strengths as a communicator. I'm aware where I need to improve my communication. I have clear communication and leadership goals. And the last question, I recognize how this applies to my life outside of Toastmasters. This question gets asked for every project pre-assessment. Once you are past that, now it starts getting into more about the module, about this lesson and what's going to be learned. I'm not going to go through everything. You may have been through it if you've been through level 1 already, or you may be working on it, but I'm just highlighting some of the pieces of it. There are embedded videos as part of the modules often. Usually, I would say in the range of, that's right, 5 to 7 minutes. It gives some instruction.
Every Toastmaster begins their journey with an icebreaker speech.
Isn't that the truth? They have videos are great as they demonstrate the training or whatever they're teaching about. It's a demonstration, a visual demonstration of what's being taught. Here we have some resources already. So if we want to look at the icebreaker speech outline worksheet, oh great, and that pops right up. And this is a great resource, especially for new Toastmasters. The first page gives them ideas for what they might talk about. Talk about yourself, main points, maybe your reasons for joining Toastmasters, some goals you have. The next pages are your basic speech format. Your greeting, your introduction, transitioning into your first point, your second point, your third point, and wrapping it all up. Once again, a great resource to use, especially with new Toastmasters. They can download this document as well. I viewed it, but you can also download that icebreaker sheet. Moving forward, now we get into some more instruction as to organizing speech, preparing for that. There are different kinds of navigation. Sometimes there will be buttons such as this, where it will have just a little tip that you can walk through. We'll keep moving forward. Same thing, different kind of navigation, timing, pacing, organization, with a little tip on each of those components to speaking. Some tips preparing, after your speech, evaluation, how you did, review. This screen is also very common. You'll have the project checklist, just like we had at the beginning. And this is a reminder for what you need to do. Review, organize, schedule your speech, and prepare. Then we come to my favorite screen, the most useful one, and that's called Your Evaluation. Here it has gathered all of the resources we need. It's got our evaluation resource. You can print the projects, the project description that was there, and the icebreaker speech outline worksheet that we had is also there. This is where you stop after you get through the web module. What you want to do next is you want to print this evaluation resource. As you can see, this is just, if you're an old-time Toastmaster, this is much like the evaluations we would do before. It's a little different in how it's structured and what it asks for, but it's still an evaluation. What I recommend is, as a speaker, you've done the module, you print out the evaluation and you bring it. If you were in the legacy program before, you brought a manual with you for someone to fill out an evaluation. If you're in Pathways now, we bring this printed evaluation with us to give to our evaluator to be able to evaluate us. As you can see, the first page focuses, the first page will share the purpose and the objectives of the speech for the evaluator so they know what to evaluate. Comments are focused on what you excelled at, you may want to work on for improvement, and to really push yourself. That's the first page. Every speech in Pathways is now evaluated for the central components to speaking. As you can see here, clarity, vocal variety, eye contact, audience awareness, gestures, etc. Every speech, you're getting feedback now on these particular areas of speaking, which is useful. So we don't do any one speech necessarily that's focused on one of these as much. I mean, there are some projects where you can focus in on a specific one, but on every speech, you get evaluated on these items. The third page are the evaluation criteria. This is really useful page, especially for new Toastmasters. They may be thinking, well, clarity, what's a 1 in clarity, or what's a 5? You know, how do I know? I hear a lot of new Toastmasters feel very unsure about evaluating someone. They feel like they don't know how to evaluate someone. This gives them criteria with which they can use to judge their evaluation. Excellent. That is the evaluation. Just briefly, but Lynette, are there any questions so far about the evaluation form or how far we've got through the module?
Nope, no questions so far.
All right. All right. Now let's say we've gone and we've given our speech. We've given our speech and we've gotten evaluated, now we're going to come back to the screen. We're essentially going to log back into Basecamp. We're going to come back here. We're going to launch this module again. And when it opens, it's going to open right where we left off. One of the great things about this program is it's at your own time. It's an on-demand program. If you get halfway through the module and you need to leave because you're heading to a meeting at work, or you are your baby's crying or whatever, that's okay. You can stop, you can close it out, and when you come back in, it will bring you right back to the same place you were. If I finish my speech, what's great is I come in here, and all I need to do next is assessing my skills after. And you'll notice it's the same questions that we asked before. This looks a little different because I've done my level 1 already. As you can see, it shows that I've answered those questions. But you would go through the same process, answers those questions, and at the bottom there's a button called Submit. And you just submit that, and that is what will now indicate here. It will give you the check mark and indicate that you are done with your icebreaker, that you have successfully completed that project. Something to be aware of. As soon as you finish the post-assessment, that is when you are considered done with the project. It has nothing to do with your evaluation. It has nothing to do with someone in your club. There's no approval process external. It's all based on when you finish that post-assessment in the module. As soon as you finish that, it will check you off and say you're done. It will show your level completion. This bar will go to probably 25% to show you're that completed, and your curriculum progress will go to 5%, something like that. This shows you your level progress here, and this is your whole pathway progress. That's as you work through the levels, this will continue to move forward. Let's say I've done my icebreaker and I've done these next 2 projects. The last item I need to do is get approval to move forward to my level 2. This last item here will usually say activate. I think it's got 3. I think it's activate, launch, and mark complete, something like that. You need to click this 3 times. Oh, hold on, didn't want to show that, but you need to click this 3 times, and then it will rely on your approvers, who are your president, your vice president education, and the secretary of your club. They will then log in as a Basecamp manager, and they will approve that level. All right, we doing all right so far?
It's looking good here.
All right. Excellent. You continue to move through. Some people like to see that's the basic. If you understand the basics there, you will be able to move through pathways no problem. I also know that for some people are planners when it comes to pathways and their Toastmaster. And I want to show you how you can see more of what's available if you are planning. In the top right corner, across from the persuasive influence or the pathway title, it says options. And we're going to go to view training details. This is going to bring up the entire pathway. It brings up the entire pathway and all of the options for that pathway. I am just going to blow that up a little bit if that's all right. So we can see. Here you can see level 1. It's got the icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, researching and presenting, and the level 1 completion. When it says minimum required 4, those are the 4 projects you have to finish. Level 1 completion is not really a project as you are just clicking the button to get approval in the system. As you can see, then you might want to see what's happening for level 2. In this particular path, I had understanding your leadership style, active listening, introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, and then once again, the level 2 completion is simply clicking that approval button. Level 1 and level 2 are pretty much the same in all of the paths. You're going to go through those projects, and there are no electives. When you get into the level 3, you look forward, you can see here, minimum requires 3. What that means is I have this understanding conflict resolution. That was a required project, if you will. That was a kind of a standard project. Then there were various elective projects. It says minimum required 2, so 2 of these projects. So delivering social speeches and using presentation software. Some of these projects might look familiar for those who've worked in some of the legacy books. You'll see that some of the topics are very similar to other lessons that we've learned that have always been a part of Toastmasters. Level 4, similar. Leading in difficult situations was required, and then 1 elective was created there. And you choose the elective, and you also choose what you want to say or do with it. I have done create a podcast for my other pathway. It was a very interesting project. I do find when you reach level 4 and 5, some of the projects take a bit more time. They are not simply preparing a speech that you're going to share at your club. You are actually performing or producing something else, such as a podcast. For instance, in that project, I created a podcast as closure to that project. I shared one of the episodes at my club, and then I gave a speech about that experience creating a podcast. Level 5, same thing. There will be a required project of some kind, an elective, and then you come to the end of your path. And when you're at the end of your path, every pathway will have us reflect on your path. That is a final project. It's kind of your capstone to talk about the lessons learned, how you grew, what you took from that experience with that pathway. It's a great way, too, to share with your fellow Toastmasters in case they might be interested in that path, or they may learn something from your experience and how you went through that pathway. I'm just going to shrink this back a little bit. And you'll see in this pathway on the right, you can skip most of the middle, but on the right you have options, and they're all in red. I just want to show this to you because if you're looking in this mode, you can launch or activate any of the projects that you'd like. It says launch because I've already activated that project. I can go back into it, see, maybe I want to review, how did they give that social speech, or I want to see their demonstration video again. I can launch that and go back into that as many times as I like. Perhaps I want to try something new. I want to make connections through networking. Maybe I thought I was going to do social speeches, but I'm really not interested in that, so I'm going to activate a different one. I can do that from this screen as well. This is a great screen for showing your overall pathway and options within that pathway. That way, if you're thinking ahead and you want to prepare, you certainly can. In moving forward, we'll go back to our home screen in Pathways. One thing that is kind of a funny but important tip, when you come up here and you hit home, if you hit this red button and you click here, it doesn't do anything. You need to come over home and then scroll down to the white, the pop-down menu, and then click home. Then it takes us back to our main screen. Tutorials and resources are the next option that are really, really good to take a look at. So again, we click the drop down, And this brings up all the various resources. You can sort them. Maybe you weren't sure about your evaluation and you wanted to come and get that. You can go back into the module and go get it, or you can come here and find it. You can see some of the examples they've put here in terms of 360 evaluation. You can get to the navigator. If I want a project description, and I'll choose English, but active listening. All right, I can look at the project description for that, or mentoring, building a social media presence. Any of those are there. You can also search in the search box here. If you type that in, it will also bring up the tutorial or resource that you're looking for. Fantastic. Excellent. So I will just go back home. Those are the basics for pathways. If you know how to get into your pathway, how to launch a module, how to print off an evaluation, you are there. You will do just great in pathways. One thing I will show you in the module, at the bottom, there is a menu that can be useful. If you are coming back to a module, this pop-up menu at the bottom allows you to go to anywhere within that module that you were. So if I forgot about the navigation, or I want to see the video navigation and go to the video tips, I can do that. Your evaluation, once again, if you are in here and you want to come back, your evaluation is the place you want to be until you finish that project. Okay. Any questions about accessing pathways, a module, completing a module and submitting it for approval, moving forward in your pathway in any way?
I've got no questions in the chat, Randy.
All right. And please feel free, if you do have any questions where we need to come back to something, happy to do that. One thing I will mention at this point before I show you some resources, some additional resources, I want to mention that approving a level in Pathways is different than submitting an educational award in the Toastmasters website. They are two different things that are not linked. When you finish level 1, one of your approvers has to approve it and you move on to level 2. However, you will not get educational credit for it or credit in Toastmasters unless your VP Ed or designate goes into the Toastmasters, goes into Club Central, and submits that educational award. Sometimes there are questions about that. Approval of a level in Pathways does not automatically trigger the award in Toastmasters. Something to be aware of. Now let's say you're sitting down this week and you thought, hey, I was at this great webinar with the Prince of Pathways and his team, but I don't really remember all the steps for getting through this. Well, we are going to set you up for success right now. d42tm.org, hopefully a website that you are familiar with, is our district website and is filled with phenomenal resources. For Pathways in particular, there's an entire page just dedicated to it. We've got a few resources there for you. So if you come to d42tm.org, you'll see resources. And I recommend checking out all these for resources. They all have very good resources. But we go Pathways step by step. And that will take us here. This is a graphic of the handout that we have for download. Before I do a demonstration at any club, I always have the coordinator print off a copy of this handout for the folks involved. I know it looks a little busy, and we'll step through that in a minute. We've also got some answers to some of the frequently asked questions that have come up at various presentations we've done of this material. There's also, for those exploring the Distinguished Toastmasters path and they want to know how that works, there's a nice graphic and table tent for your meetings if you'd like to use it that shows people the path to the Distinguished Toastmaster, towards earning their Distinguished Toastmaster. Hold on a minute. We're going to start. If you want to, you can click and download this Pathways step by step. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. All right. This is meant to be a step-by-step visual aid to help you on your path through Pathways. Unfortunately, navigating Basecamp is not overly intuitive, and we hope that this makes it a little bit easier. It goes over the steps that I've covered previously. As you can see here, we start here. You've logged in, you've gone to Pathways, and now you're going to go to Basecamp, right? This is that middle box I talked about. You're going to go to Basecamp, and first time through this graphic, we're going to follow the red lines, and the second time, we're going to come through with the blue. As you can see, my education transcript, in this case, team collaboration is my path. I open the curriculum. That looks probably very familiar, and then we get to this screen. This is the main Basecamp screen with our various projects. We clicked the red button that said launch, and that launched our web module. We go through the first few slides of the module, and we assessed our skills before. It's kind of a trigger, gets things moving. We go through the entire web module, and we get to our favorite page, which is your evaluation. This has all of the resources that you're going to need for that project. And what I like is you may get them throughout the module, but here they're all in one place, making it nice and easy to access. This is where you stop in Pathways. You're going to print the evaluation, schedule your speech, give a speech. You're going to do just awesome at that speech, I know. And now you're going to come back to complete that path. You're going to log back into Basecamp. You're going to open your curriculum for your pathway again. You're going to launch that same module. You're going to go back in, and it's going to say assess your skills after, just like it does here, sorry. And then from here, you'll launch it. You open that web module. It's going to bring you back to that last page. You're going to move forward, and it will say assess your skills after. You'll answer those 5 or 6 questions. At the bottom here, you can see just slightly it says submit. You click that, and congratulations, you've just finished your project. I recommend this resource. It's been a great resource for clubs, and it helps members understand that this is doable. It just shows a breakdown in the number of steps and what needs to happen. We've also included with this some frequently asked questions and a place for people to respond with any notes that they may have or write down any notes they have. Some, just to cover them briefly, it's important for Toastmasters to know that this is still your path. We all come to Toastmasters with our own motivations, and it's what we want to learn or do with those speeches. We decide the topic. We decide what we are going to speak about. There are often questions about uploading evaluations. When this program first came out, there was a lot of talk about it being digital, a lot of talk about it being electronic, and that is not the case. You may upload your evaluations if you would like to, but you are not required to. It is not part of the process. Your evaluation is a resource tool for you and for your own growth only. I put mine in a binder. Some people maybe scan and save them. Some people do like to upload them to Basecamp, and if folks are interested, I can show you where to do that. We are still, the easiest way to proceed is still a paper process. And a lot of that happens, as I said, by printing the evaluation, taking that with you to your evaluator, receiving that back, and then taking your own learning from that. You also put a resource on there for where to find those resources with for Pathways. All right. Excellent. So we will come back to this screen. We have covered a fair bit of material in terms of Pathways. Sometimes this is a great stage where people may have some questions. I may have answered most of them because we've had a number of the questions asked in other workshops, but please do feel free. If you'd like to, we can unmute you if you like, or feel free to use the chat box and Lynette will be your voice. And perhaps I will ask, as people are thinking of any questions they have, I will ask my team, Lynette and Andre, are there any questions that you've heard that have not been covered, or any clarification that would be useful when we've done this in the past?
I can't think of anything right now. Dan had a question in the chat that I'll just address to everybody. And it was, can you work on more than one path at a time? And yes, you can. You can work on as many as you'd like. You just have to purchase additional paths. And Marta would like a link in the chat for the step-by-step and the FAQ, so I'll see if I can manage that.
Here, I might be able to do that. Once again, if you go to the d42tm.org and click on resources, pathways step by step, that will get you there. If I have access to the chat here. Oh, let me see if I can. I have put it in the chat box.
Thanks, Randy.
No problem. Fantastic. As we, if there are no more questions, and it's okay if there are, I will just let people know that if you know of others that are looking for some of this information, we are recording this tonight and we will be posting it to the Pathways web page on the d42tm.org website. That way it'll be available for any of your fellow members who are not able to attend tonight. We went through all of the same information that we're giving in live presentations, and we wanted to make this more easily accessible to all the members of District 42. That will be up shortly, and it will be available to you on the website.
Randy, do you want to show them where the other step-by-step is, the one that is too ink intensive to print, the other one that we did, that could be put maybe on a club website?
Yes, I think. I'll pull it up. We had it on this website.
Marta would also like you to show how to upload the evaluation, if you want to do that.
Certainly. Okay. All right. In Pathways, I'm in my curriculum, but I'm going to go to the home Pathways site. We do have the ability to upload documents to Pathways. If we want to, I'm just going to click on my feedback. It takes me to this screen. This is where your feedback, transcript, and e-portfolio is what it's called. Feedback is for giving feedback to fellow members if you'd like to. It's a bit convoluted in terms of how to do that. I'm happy to show it, but it's not very intuitive. And it's easier, I think, if you give feedback in the moment. I know a lot of clubs may have paper processes for giving feedback. You have the transcript. This is another way of looking at the programs that you have open right now. This is the exact same as what it said when it said My Education Transcript on the main page. It had these three options, because those are all options I've activated. And then we have this e-portfolio. This is where you can upload documents. Where it says documents right here, you would click on documents in ePortfolio. You can, let's choose level 1, or you can just choose the general My Documents. Essentially, this is, if you are familiar with Dropbox, Google Docs, any kind of cloud-based storage system, that's exactly what this is. It's not, it's essentially another external hard drive for you if you want to use it. For instance, in level 1, when we were doing some of the training, or I did a Division E training, I was playing around and I added a file here. As you can see on the right, there's the Add File button. If you're used to saving files, you'll be fairly familiar with this. Then you can select a file, click Add, and it will go into your folder here, level 1. I do not believe you can change the names of these. So this is level 1 in My Documents, etc. So if you wanted, you could scan and upload your evaluation. You could upload your PowerPoint if you have one. You can scan your notes or upload your outline, whatever you would like. If you want to keep it all together and this is where you'd like to keep it, that's where you would keep it. Great. Excellent. Any other questions?
I have a comment, Randy, that might be helpful. I started saving all my documents, like all my evaluations in my documents, and I was running in 2 paths. So it would be evaluation for level 1, project 1. The other day I went back and I renamed all the files so I would actually be able to find them. So I actually used the title, Effective Coaching, Project 1, Icebreaker, whatever. It doesn't give you a lot of characters, but I think if you're starting to upload documents, make sure you have a good system, because once you have 20 documents, you're going to forget which ones are which. So it's really valuable to label your evaluations for what path they are. And if you weren't in 2 paths until sort of your second path, speech number 3, you wouldn't realize that you might end up with overlap. So I think that's probably a normal, how do you store your files things, but in here, and I had them all in my documents and I wasn't using the levels. And then I just started putting the evaluations per level. So it actually is more valuable to me now than it was when I started. But I learned that through trial and error.
Great, thank you. And certainly, I know many people, we have different systems for keeping our files. Whatever works for you will work. It's meant to be a resource if you'd like to use it. And then, as you can see, we can get right back to our home page the same way we came. The blue boxes will do some of the same, provide you the same functionality. Once again, it's another way of accessing the same information. Excellent. Well, we covered a fair bit of information. If you or your club feel like you need additional training or have questions, please feel free to get in contact with me. I or a member of my team will get in touch with you to try and answer any of the questions that you have. I also find that I will occasionally email the Toastmasters International as well, and they answer a number of questions about pathways as well, and can be a very good resource to you. Otherwise, if there are no other questions, I want to thank everyone for their time. I hope this was valuable and that you will feel more confident. And I really do hope that you will go back to your club and become a super user of Pathways, knowledgeable and able to help train your fellow members of your club so that they can feel confident in moving forward in their Pathways experience, just like you are. And with that, I think we will close the webinar. Thank you once again. Christina, I'll just have you go ahead and stop the recording.